wanted to touch before we go and bring in Thane Rosenbaum, distinguished professor at Touro University. Thane, we wanted to go back to the topic of the former president. They're looking at him, Alvin Bragg, the DA in New York, taking a look at him. We have pretty much addressed the content of those allegations that are still not ending up in an indictment. We've talked about. What I wanted to ask you is about the efforts that Jim Jordan and others in Congress have toward. Now, I missed class last week, but as I recall, there's a separation of powers, and at least at the federal and state level, and that these are two different entities, and the idea that Congress is going to start reviewing it, you might like it now because it's a Republican looking at a Democrat, but 10 years from now, it could be just the opposite.
Bob, and you know, as my key best student, you know that in this case, Alvin Bragg is trying to use a federal law. Okay. And that's beyond his jurisdiction. So it's very strange for him now to say, wait a minute, you can't touch me because I work for New York State. I don't work for the federal government. Really? Well, maybe not, but you're trying to use a convoluted legal contortion to turn a misdemeanor. Remember when people, Nina knows this, you know, you say this is, don't make a federal case out of it. Yeah. This is a misdemeanor, Nina. This is not something that ever would rise to the level of a felony. So it is odd that he would take that position. But let me tell you why this is important. Because those two prosecutors resigned from the office when Bragg refused to prosecute Trump on the cases dealing with inflated assets for insurance policies and bank fraud and tax fraud. And they were brought from outside. They weren't even in his office. They were rock star prosecutors. They were brought in to bring this case. You know what you want to ask them? Did you see the Stormy Daniels case? And they're going to say, yeah, we saw that. Why didn't you want to bring that? Because it was ridiculous. We're not going to bring the Stormy Daniels case.
There you go.
It's stale. It's a misdemeanor. There's a statute of limitations problem. So that's why they want to talk to him.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got to run right now. I think he's back with us.
You're back with us in the 3 p.m. hour. Yeah.
Thane Rosenbaum, thank you so much. Folks, coming up,
Thane.
we've got a lot more. All right, it was supposed to happen Tuesday, then maybe later this week. You could say the public's been waiting for a possible indictment of former President Trump. That's in regard to the case of an alleged secret deal with adult film actress Stormy Daniels. The panel of 23 men and women will decide to recommend an indictment as the case gets pushed back.
And there's growing speculation of dissension in the district attorney's office over the strength of the case because a letter surfaced showing Michael Cohen telling the Federal Election Commission saying he, quote, used his own money to facilitate a payment to Daniels in 2016. But what is the likelihood of seeing actual charges? Well, distinguished professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum, joins us to discuss. All right, Thane, I know Bob is your best student. I'm working on that. But
you got to go to class.
Well,
I'm not going to keep giving you my notes.
That was not nice. Okay, just kidding. All right, Thane. Do you anticipate that an indictment will be handed down, or is Alvin Bragg's case over?
Nina, you know you're always my special friend.
Thank you.
Look, I would have said until recently that Alvin Bragg was functioning, even though he's a New Yorker, like a true cowboy, as if he's saying, I'm not going to do what normal prosecutors do. Prosecutors generally don't bring indictments unless they can win. If the case is weak and it blows up in their face, it looks terrible for them. And guess what? They don't get reelected. And if they want to run for governor, that's not going to happen. But New York is a weird place because Donald Trump is profoundly unpopular here. So he might have thought, you know what? All I want to do is fingerprint Donald Trump. I just want to be the guy that puts fingerprints, takes a photo of him, a mug shot, and indict him. Even if it blows up, New Yorkers will reward me. But look, he might be having second doubts, cold feet. The prosecutors in his office are having doubts in the case. The grand jury might have a mutiny with the grand jury. They may be upset that when Michael Cohen's lawyer was brought in to testify and give evidence, he ended up telling media later that that Alvin Bragg did not show them all the evidence that he brought. So they're working there, helping to decide whether to indict a former president. and they don't even have the benefit of all the evidence. So who knows? It's not clear. Up until now, I would have said Bragg doesn't care. He just wants to be the first guy out of the gate to bring charges against the president. But now he might have cold feet, or some Democrats are saying, don't be remembered in history as the man who single-handedly got Donald Trump reelected.
There's that. There's that also. And I did have a question on if there's let's say they did issue an indictment and they did charge the president and the former president, and they actually convicted him. And then there's appeal in New York. Seems like the state of New York's pretty liberal. Maybe they uphold that. But didn't you say there's a federal charge in there? Would that go a different route and appeal there?
So honestly, Bob, without the federal charge, the whole case is ridiculous. It's truly a misdemeanor. It wouldn't be a case that you put on Law and Order on television, right? So the only thing makes this significant if they can make this a federal campaign finance law violation. But in order to do that, right, first of all, the statute of limitations have run. Secondly, how does a state law get turned into a federal law? It's never been done before. It would be contorted, convoluted. And lastly, they'd have to be able to prove that Donald Trump was trying to evade the campaign finance laws when he gave hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. When most jurors would think that Donald Trump was really trying to avoid not campaign finance laws, but his wife. He was trying to save his marriage, save his reputation to the public. He may not have even realized that writing a check on his own checking account violated the campaign finance laws.
But to your point, why wouldn't the Democrats actually want the optics, right? The fingerprints, the perp walk, things of that nature, right? Knowing that the case has no merit, but they want the optics, just like they wanted the impeachment theater, right? With the Hollywood production. Do you think that that's what part of their strategy?
Yeah, except for one thing, and this happened in New York. I don't know if the rest of the country remembers. I don't know if you remember, Dominique Strauss-Kahn was a candidate for the presidency of France, and he was in New York, and he got arrested on his flight before the flight took off at Kennedy, hauled, took a perp walk, the whole deal, right? Perp walk, fingerprints, and that case ended up getting exploded in the face of the prosecuting attorney. It was a sexual assault case in the hotel that purportedly took place before he went on the plane. The people of France went nuts. They couldn't believe that you would embarrass our guy like that. Fingerprinting him, mug shots, photographs, you did that to our guy. If I was the Democrats, I would say the Trump supporters are way more loyal than the people of France. They are going to go nuts if they see this happen to Donald Trump.
Look at the two star witnesses here.
That fire.
Look at the two star witnesses. Michael Cohen is a convicted perjurer. Forget about the felon. He's a convicted perjurer. And then you have Stormy Daniels.
Would the jury know that, by the way?
I don't know. That's a good question. But what was the former New York Chief Judge Saul Wachter? He said you can indict a ham sandwich.
Well, of course,
right?
Yeah.
And so to what he was saying before, saying it's like they don't bring a DA doesn't bring a case before a grand jury unless they know for sure that they are going to win, and especially, of course, right here in New York City. And also, remember, Stormy Daniels, she sued Trump, right, for defamation. She lost that case, and she ended up having to pay him $300,000 in legal fees. So I don't know. Does the grand jury know about that either? But again, we know that the district attorney, it depends on what he or she wants to present to the grand jury. And that's why usually they do get an indictment. Right. But of course, they say that they're not going to leak they're not supposed to get the mugshot out there, but you know they're going to leak
there will definitely be.
If it
happens,
He may want it out there because
I think so too. He has said he wants it to be a spectacle.
Absolutely.
Who wants it to be a spectacle?
That's